Well, I think firstly, Museum MACAN is unique not only in the Indonesian context, but also in the Southeast Asian context. We're the first museum of modern contemporary art in Indonesia. So when we opened in 2017, the kind of landscape for supporting these types of activities is still pretty slim. So actually, that is so we have quite a big responsibility, I think, in terms of being able to reflect the society around us, doing things for the first time, but also being relevant and reflective of the society that we live in. Indonesia is very young. It's an incredibly vibrant place, linguistically, ethnically, religiously diverse. So it's a really interesting place to work and to create projects. Well, I think it's really continuing what we've already set out to do, which is to support artists, to be a place where people can come together and to discuss important social and artistic issues in an environment, in a museum environment, and also to support the broader art education agenda. Like it's really very much a way of being able to not just unlock creativity, but also critical thinking, which I think is really important in the kinds of societies that we live in right now. So thinking forward in terms of what the program looks like and what our activities look like, it still is about making sure that we have that relevance with our audiences, that we're reflecting their concerns, and that we're not just imposing forms of museum practices on audiences, but actually growing and working with people to do things that I think have value, as you say, not just to Indonesia, but I think more broadly across Southeast Asia. I think that what we present also is a slightly different inflection of what Southeast Asia looks like. And I think it's because we are very much embedded in, or we very much understand the social and political and economic conditions in which we work. And I think our program has been able to illustrate to others who are watching outside that actually Southeast Asia is incredibly diverse, and it might not necessarily look like the things that they have in their imaginations about the region. I think, gauging that is really also about not just the research, the things that we're looking at, the things that we the artists who we're talking to, but also making sure that we do remain responsive to our audiences. I mean, as you can see behind me, there were people, young people. Indonesia is a very, very young place. It's definitely not an aging population. So in fact, we've learned a lot about the world around us through the eyes of our audiences as we watch them engage with our programs on social media. So it's a very, not a strange, but it's a very unique inflection of the relationship between an institution and audiences through different forms of media. And yes, we learn a lot from them. We learn how they see the things that they're interested in. And it's not as if our program is just reflecting their tastes and their needs, but actually we're trying to, it's a much more genuine relationship, I think, between trying to understand how that they think and how that they also choose to be reflected in our programs and in the wider culture and society. 270,000, if not more, children, students, and also teachers who have been directly involved in our program. So this isn't just an audience number; it's actually people who are involved in our education program. And I think that that's also the impact of what we do. It really is. For lots of these kids and lots of our audiences, they've never been to a museum before. They've never been able to engage with these kinds of conversations about contemporary art or even about modern art. So we're and our attitude really has been to work hand in hand with teachers and schools in order to deliver these types of programs. So let me give you a little bit of context. When we opened it in 2017, we knew that there aren't any textbooks for art in Indonesia. So we really had to think very carefully about how we would deliver an education program. And the first thing that we did was actually engage with the teachers. You know, what are the things that they need? What are their challenges within their classrooms? And I think for Western audiences, it might seem very fundamental, and it is. You know, we're providing access to materials that didn't exist before the museum opened. This has been rewarding for us in the sense that we've also been able to grow. The teachers have been growing with us. We've been growing with the teachers to the point now where all of our programs and all of our materials that we published are reviewed by a small committee of teachers. So we want to make sure that we're not just producing things for the sake of producing, but also making sure that things are being actively used in the classroom. We learned a lot from teachers during the pandemic, especially about how to deliver programs online, how to really respond in respectful ways to the types of the economic and the technological barriers that face students and schools. And I think that that's the reason why we've been able to be so impactful and been able to have so many people engage with us. I'll give you a really fun example of things and how that feedback from not just the schools but also kids and parents have and how that they've changed our programming. So at the moment for this exhibition, we've introduced a new project called In My Own Words, and what it is kids who are involved in writing workshops with us, who are actually writing the descriptive labels for the exhibition. And they're able to do this in a whole range of different ways. It could be through writing, or it could be through drawing. It's location is everything. I think context is everything. We're doing something for the first time here in Indonesia. We know how important both the art education and access to art is, but it's also very important not to just impose standards and impose information onto audiences who have never been into a place like this. So there is give and take. You know, I hope that we are seen to be receptive to the needs of what's going on around us. How this is reflected in the program is in a number of ways. The museum has a collection, and when we deal with the Indonesian collection, which tries to be representative of the key moments and the history of Indonesia, we are very we're trying to create exhibitions that are not only tell that story, but also relevant to the lives of our visitors now. And so I think actually our collection shows when we've revisited moments like the independence and the revolution that happened here, Reformasi. These things resonate with our audiences in really different ways, because I think that we're a little bit more responsive to how these things are presented. Our attitude actually is, we are a museum that thinks globally. Our exhibitions are drawn from everywhere, but it's a global perspective that is very much emanates from Indonesia itself. So it starts here and it looks out. And I think possibly this exhibition that we've just opened, Voice Against Reason, is a good example of that. You know, it is loosely Southeast Asian plus other geographies, but it but it mostly connects to lots of the issues and the ideas that have been circulating within Indonesia and itself. So it's not just it's not an encyclopedic view per se, but it's more about relationships, and it's and seeing those connections from one place to another and how that they might be meaningful to artists and also audiences here. So partnerships is a really important way in which we think about our program. I think it is it's a reflection also as well. It's a kind of being respectful to the research that your peers and other institutions um, to the research that they kind of pour into an exhibition. So we do like to collaborate with other museums. We've worked with the Moriarty Museum to bring in Chiharu Shota. We worked with the National Gallery of Singapore and the Queensland Art Gallery to bring in Yayoi Kusama. UCCA in Beijing to work with Xu Bing. So these collaborations also help us to see different forms of institutional practice. So it's not just about the exhibitions, but it's also about the people, the people within the institutions. And I think that those networks and those relationships are very important to creating sustainable practices, like for especially here in Indonesia, where there are fewer opportunities for people who work in institutions to network or to collaborate. That these forms of these big exhibitions are one way to do that.